Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the podcast. I am here with someone that you've seen often, we've had as a guest, and I love having Stephan de Barse back to talk to us. So, Stephan, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to anybody who might not know you?
Yeah, thanks, Maria, for having me. So, hi everyone. My name is Stephan de Barse. I'm leading online in Europe and been with the company now for 2.5 years. I have a background in finance and supply chain. So, we will talk about that today for sure. And what I'm excited about, and I think what Maria has been driving, is bringing together thought leaders, academics, practitioners, business leaders to discuss transformation and to discuss transformation in various ways. Obviously, O9 as an organization, being an AI-powered platform in this space, driving transformation in revenue, supply chain, finance, decision-making, and planning, is obviously a key player in this world. And would love to share some stories and perspectives. But Maria, as always, looking forward to the conversation.
You know, Stephan, you are uniquely placed, I think, as a company that sees so many different examples of digital transformation, successes, failures, people that are probably stalling. Um, what are you seeing right now? I mean, we're in the middle of this pandemic, so what's the general feel at the moment?
Yeah, I think, by the way, first of all, that is true, actually. Sometimes we don't even realize, but, we go from working with a big retailer to working with an industrial manufacturer to working with a telecom provider to working with a big FMCG company. So you get a really good understanding of what's happening in every industry. Now, talking about sort of what is happening across industries, I think there are a couple of transformation topics that are top of mind for senior executives. And the first one is customer and consumer transformation. Now, we are engaging, for instance, with a large manufacturer that is looking into how are they going to change the way they interact with the end consumer. So this manufacturer is selling consumer products through online, as well as retail stores, and a little bit through wholesale. But eventually it is you, Maria, logging in online to buy one of their products, or it's me walking into a retail store that is buying that. Now, they're not even thinking about sort of how will this omni-channel complexity play out. They're actually thinking about you and me. So they're thinking about how will it transform how we do business with consumers. So instead of dealing with 1,000 customers, they now need to deal with hundreds of millions of consumers. And Maria has a very different profile than Stephan, and Stephan has a very different profile than someone else. So there will be new engagement models, for instance, moving towards subscription models and all that kind of stuff. And I think that transformation is going to be very rapid, and companies that will not sort of jump on that fast enough will be in trouble. So big sort of transformation topic on the consumer side or customer side. The other big transformation piece is what we are seeing on the product side. So people are putting IoT and sensor devices in products. So we see that in digital manufacturing, right? They put a sensor in an engine, that engine goes in a car, and based on sensor data, right, we can actually start understanding when an engine will fill, which part will fill, and so forth. But also a lot of consumer products companies are putting sensors in, for instance, products that are being put on the store, so they can see how often particular product is put off the shelf, and then how many times that leads to transaction. So products will be equipped with IoT devices, and again, we see big transformation there. So the other big transformation piece is what we are seeing on the operations side. So I think companies are now more and more vocal about it. They use blockchain technology to understand where raw materials are coming from. They're using track and trace providers to get real-time visibility on ETAs and so forth. Then we see companies are now embarking on journeys to make their factories digital factories, so they can see, back home, from their monitors, how factories are performing, and can, based on that, do predictive maintenance and predictive monitoring mechanisms. So again, transformation. So what we're seeing, Maria, is there is consumer transformation, there is product transformation, there is operations transformation. But one of the things that is actually creating is, first of all, more complexity. Second is much more variability. And third is companies are really creating an ocean of data. Like truly, it's an ocean of data. And what they are actually struggling with is how to cope with all that complexity, variability in data. And that's where we are seeing a trend is that companies that now start to think of actually being a technology company. So think about, Uber, Tesla, and Amazon. They are technology companies, but they have been technology companies, from the beginning. Where a lot of companies that now see all that transformation around them, they need to start acting like a technology company, but they don't have the resources and they don't have the skills to actually become one. And that's where we are seeing now more and more companies that are looking into, can I find a partner to enable digital transformation on the consumer side? Can I find a partner that provides me with scalability? Think about the different cloud providers that are out there. And can I find a partner that can, in essence, build a sort of digital brain of my operating model, connecting, consumers and customers and building market knowledge, connecting with my demand and initiatives and creating demand knowledge, and connecting with my entire supply chain all the way down to my tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers and creating supply knowledge and bringing that all together for planning and decision making. So that is what we are seeing in the market. So summarizing that, big companies are moving towards thinking and acting like technology companies, but they need help in actually in that journey.
So do you think that, this pandemic has helped to some degree digital transformation acceleration, or do you think that it's maybe left people a little bit, I think once you and I talked about this, companies sort of panicked and not wanting to make any decisions? Are they falling into those categories, or do you feel that there's more vision in the market now, people that do see the possibilities?
Yeah, vision is a good question. I think a lot of companies are sort of shaping the vision now, but they do understand that they need to act sooner than later. And I think that is, a great example is on consumer transformation. So where a lot of companies were still very traditional, selling through retail stores, brick and mortar, and so forth, overnight now they had to sell online. Now, that obviously has a lot of different challenges because instead of 5 big customers that deploy different retail stores, now you actually need to build a direct relationship with consumers. And that is then where they start to think, okay, if that is something that will stay like this, how can I build a competitive advantage of being better in serving the consumer? So for instance, if I am a manufacturer and I now have 1 million or let's say 100 million consumers, right? Can I actually understand that the moment, for instance, I have a shortage of white shoes, that I'm going to prioritize Maria because Maria is a shoe fanatic. She is buying shoes from my brand every single month. She doesn't care so much about the price. So the moment I have a shortage of a particular shoe, I'm going to sense and shape my demand towards Maria. But if I am having some excess stock in black t-shirts, or why don't we use the turtleneck as an example, then I know that Stephan is a big fan of those turtlenecks, so can I actually shape the demand towards him? And I think this is where data obviously becomes very important, because if I move from serving 1,000 clients to serving 100 million consumers, that is a massive transformation, Maria. And that is where we see companies are sort of struggling to understand how to do that, how to equip themselves, and then how to find partners that can support them on that journey. And that's where I think a change is going to happen too, where historically, companies have operated in a certain way, and then they look for different applications to support them. So I have an application for warehousing, I have an application for planning, I have an application for whatever. But now they need to actually start forming partnerships with technology companies to really develop this together, because this is not an standalone application play anymore. This is digital transformation at whole new levels.
Stefan, do you think that supply chain leaders, supply chain executives, maybe even board level executives get that the pace of change is like nothing before? You know, do you think that they're just taking too long to make certain decisions? Do you think that there are executives that are understanding that they need to make these decisions quickly? What's the feeling like on that side?
A mixed bag, to be honest, Maria. We see companies that totally understand this, that are absolutely doing all the right things and looking into forming those partnerships and accelerating their journey. We also see companies that don't believe the pace will be so fast. So they just take their time and
Yeah,
sort of sit idle and wait. And then you have companies that understand the urgency, but really don't know where to start or how to start.
yeah,
So I think those are sort of the three different companies that we are seeing in the market. But I strongly believe that in 3 or 4 years from now, we will look back at this period, sort of, in this entire COVID situation, or pre or post COVID, whatever. And then we're looking back, and we will see the winners, and we are
yeah.
going to see the losers. And I think that the winners will be the companies that understand they need to start behaving and becoming much more technology companies, and the companies that believe that it will not go so fast. They will really face a lot of issues in the next couple of years when it comes to competing in an obviously highly competitive market.
Well, clearly, I mean, even before COVID, we were all seeing that disruption was happening anyway, right? And companies needed to respond to that kind of disruption. But now with COVID, it's those agile, visionary companies that are really understanding that the pace of change is quite quick. We're hitting towards the end of the year now, right? What do you think and I'm going to ask you to gaze into your crystal ball. I know you're not going to, I'm not going to hold you to any predictions really, but give or take, where do you think we're going to get to towards the end of the year? What can we expect in the first half of next year?
I think, it's a very interesting question, because we are now sort of, I'm Amsterdam based in the Netherlands, and, the government, yesterday they announced new lockdown measures. So we see, more and more cases. So who knows for how long we are going to be in this situation. My guess would be, for the next 12, 18 months, right? This virus will be sort of among us, and we have to find a way to deal with that. So obviously that's one thing, from society and people point of view to deal with it. But I think what we are going to see is we are going to see a lot of companies that are going to take the moment now to accelerate transformation. And I'm extremely excited, based on different conversations with various companies that are really looking into the future. And it becomes harder to predict the future, which means that you need to start getting as close to the end demand or to the consumer or customer as possible, and building a very sort of resilient supply chain, so that the moment change occurs, you can immediately respond and also embrace that. I think the key challenge that organizations are going to face is how to deal with the change. And that really has to do with the uncertainty there is currently. So obviously with COVID, right, it is impacting, it's impacting jobs, it's impacting people, and so forth. And if you then also need to drive big transformation, what is going to be the impact when it comes to employees and how to drive that change? So I'm definitely looking for innovation in that space as well. But overall, I think the future does look bright. And I think sort of a wake-up call that we need to accelerate digital transformation, and big companies behaving more and more like tech companies is going to be an extremely exciting sort of journey to watch.
You talk a little bit about, I want to go back to the three types of companies that we're seeing at the moment, and I think if we can dismiss those companies that perhaps are not going to do anything, let's move those out of the way, because whether you call it, economic Darwinism or whatever you want to call it, they may not be around. Let's talk about those companies that know they have a problem, that need to change, that need to do something, don't know where to start. And what are the, and I've asked you this question before, and we've talked about it at length, and I really loved one of the answers you gave one of the first times I interviewed you about prototyping, about doing things in a small way. So let's talk about those companies that know they need to do something but don't know how in the world they're going to do it. Talk to me about that and what advice you give to those people.
Yeah, think about how are companies like Tesla, Amazon, and Uber driving transformation, right? The key people that they have in the organization are sort of product or program managers that are business savvy, but tech savvy at the same time. So how you should see that is sort of solution architects that can actually translate business needs into technology solutions at a very fast pace. Now that is the key skill set that organizations are missing today. So they either have very deep IT knowledge or they have very good business practitioners, but they find it very tough to understand, okay, I have a business problem, I want to solve it with tech, I have no clue how to do that. And my technology people in my company, they're very tech savvy, but they miss the business language and truly understanding the business complexity. So I think what we are seeing and the recommendation would be is to start looking into how can I form partnerships with those companies that can provide those resources. And it would say, okay, out of all the things that you need to do, let's say you have 20 whatever different priorities that you have, let's sort of break them down and say, okay, what is it what I can do the next 12 months? Maybe just getting the basics in place. Maybe I am already at a more mature level and I want to move into a couple of more advanced use cases, and then really start sort of building that core team of product managers together with business people and data people, data scientists, and develop a prototype. Can never take longer than 3 months, and then it should be tested and validated, and it should be built in a way that you can immediately scale that globally. So you build a prototype. Let's say, Maria, I'm going to do AI-powered forecasting and demand sensing in a particular market. Let's say you live in the UK, so we take the UK. So you build that in the UK, you test it out in the UK, you prove the results, and then you need to develop it in a way then it can go to Benelux and Nordics. So you do the same there. You test it, you prototype it, you get the feedback, and now you have your template ready that you can scale. And obviously, depending on the different regions and countries, there will be some localization required, but that is much less than what most people think, honestly, today. So again, the notion is, start looking for technology partnerships rather than shopping for applications. Start understanding what is the vision and your roadmap, and break that down into pieces that you can digest. And then of those pieces, start prioritizing them based on, for instance, the value leakage today in your organization. Then the moment you have that prioritized list of sort of projects and capabilities that you want to build, then start building out the prototypes, do that in that 12-week framework, and then have that very agile and iterative process, because that's exactly how successful and the big tech companies are doing it. And again, that's where we need to start changing the mindset. You're not going to pick an application, do a 4-year waterfall project. Before you do that, you ask an SI to create your processes down to L6 level. Unfortunately, we still see that. And honestly, it's sort of blowing my mind, that's still happening. Transformation is you do that together, and you use a technology to drive that. And that would be my advice, Maria.
So how feasible, this is the last question I'm going to ask you, because a lot of people are daunted by the prospect of a large scale transformation project, even if it's a smaller one, like you say, even if it's prototyping. To do a digital transformation project in the best of times is hard as hell, complicated. I mean, you talk about variability, complexity, right? And data. But during a pandemic, what do you say to people that are thinking about doing it but are not too sure yet? What's your parting words to those people?
Yeah, I think, Maria, they've never done it before, right? There's a lot of talks about digital transformation, and then you get the feedback, yeah, but we implemented Salesforce, or yeah, we implemented SAP APO 5 years ago, or we did an ERP transformation. That is installation of applications. That's not digital transformation. Digital transformation is looking at the core of your business model, looking into how that's being transformed to what we discussed, right? Based on consumer transformation, product transformation, operational transformation, looking into the key use cases, right, that are relevant to you and that are causing value leakage or a competitive disadvantage today, take those, right, then sit down together with tech partners and potentially consultants and start building those prototypes and testing. So really my message would be, don't see this as the sort of installation or implementation of, whatever application. This is just a new way of actually driving your business, the development of your own business model. And I think that is the change that we are seeing, and also the change in thinking that we should be driving.
And also call you.
I mean, for sure.
Call 09.
No, for sure.
Stephan,
yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And, we always look forward to talking to you and seeing what's happening in the industry and what we should look forward to and what to expect. So no doubt we'll see you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. And I'm looking forward to, your next big event next week. Yeah. I'm excited for Transform. So looking forward to the discussions.
Brilliant. Well, we'll see you there. All right, Stephan, take care. And for those of you watching, we'll see you at the next time. Thanks a lot.